Hey guys, welcome to this episode of Design Your Physician Life podcast, brought to you by the Maxillary Mastermind, a personal and professional development for physician entrepreneurs. Today we have a wonderful guest, Dr. Pranay Parikh. We're going to be talking about how to design a resilient life. Are you ready? Let's go.
Welcome to the Design Your Physician Life podcast, where you will get excited about being a physician, learn the tools that can help boost your success, and great tips from successful doctors. Join us to unlock the keys to an amazing physician life. And now, here's your host, Dr. Myrdalis Diaz-Ramirez.
Hey guys, we're very excited today. We have an amazing physician, Dr. Pranay Parikh. He's not only a physician, he also has a master's in medical management. He has worked as a hospitalist. He's the founder of the podcast From MD to Entrepreneur. He's a blogger, co-founder of the national real estate investment firm called Ascent Equity Group, and also co-founder of the Leverage and Growth Summit. He now teaches people on productivity, entrepreneurship, and time management. Thank you for being here with us today.
Hey, thanks for your time. Appreciate it.
So we're going to see how you can coach me today too, right? We're going to go through that process. We'll see. One of the things that I like to start our podcast with is who was the one who decided to become a physician? Was it like young Pranay, teen Pranay? Was Pranay in college when he decided to become a physician?
So you can say it was actually 2 generations ago. So my grandma, born in India, and my dad, born in India. My grandma really wanted my dad to be a physician in India. That was, that's probably one of the highest jobs you can do. Even now, everyone wants to be a doctor. My dad, he faints at the sight of his own blood, let alone someone else's blood. And he became an engineer, and we're very thankful that he did that because despite coming from a small town of like 1,000 people, like get this, they got toilets in 1992. And so he was able to get his engineering degree, got a master's in the 80s, back when no one else got master's degrees, and was able to bring us all here. And he's like, hey, I would really love for you to be a doctor, talking to me. And fortunately, like that was something I was really into. And he got lucky because my brother's a doctor too.
Oh my goodness. So they told you that you had to become a physician and they suggested it, or, you heard it in conversation?
Yeah, suggested it. And it was, it was a suggestion, and just, giving the tools and resources. So, we had a very middle-class life, but helped me get into college, helped me pay for some of college and so on.
That's great. And now these days you are co-owner of an investment firm, Equity Group. That's amazing. So let's talk a little bit about the history that took you slowly to get involved with this group that you co-founded.
Yeah. So, looking back, people wonder kind of how or why I do all this stuff. But I was thinking back about my dad. He owned a bunch of limos at one point, a bunch of condos. He owns an ice cream store now as an electrical engineer. So he's always been dabbling at a lot of stuff. And that's kind of me. I've always been dabbling at a lot of stuff. And I think that's actually hurt me in medicine. When I first matched into residency, I didn't match at my top 1 or 2 or 3. I actually matched on my 9th. So very close to the end. Yeah. Almost did not match.
So now this time I didn't open my eyes. I dropped my jaw.
Yeah. So, I almost didn't match because I was in medicine. I had pretty good grades, but I was doing charity art shows for Doctors Without Borders. I was just doing a lot of stuff that was somewhat related to medicine, but my CV never said, hey, medicine's the only thing I care about in life. And that's kind of what they want, right? It's funny. They want you to be well-rounded before you get into medical school, but after you get in, they don't want you to do anything else. They consider it a distraction. But then you and I know people come out, they're full-fledged doctors, and then all they have is medicine, and they don't know how to do anything else. So kicking and screaming, I kind of kept some of my interests. So I got into residency, right? And I made this conscious decision, even though I ranked pretty low. I was like, okay, like this kind of sucks. But I don't think it's me. I don't think it's. I think it's more the system. So if you remember in-service exams, the test that everyone kind of blows off, I was like, no one else studies for this. Let me just study. Maybe I can do okay on this test and show that it's not me that's the problem. And I got 98th percentile on that test, and I was like, okay, it's not me. I'm smart. I'm okay. Or maybe I just had a couple of really bad interviews, which is something that I can change and work on. And about 6 months into residency, I was talking to my senior resident, and he was like, "Why don't you just move to California? I'm California born and raised for college and everything." It's like, you could do that. You can transfer. And 5 minutes later, I was on a computer, and I found that there was 3 open spots at University of Southern California, USC Trojans. And I applied. I didn't think I'd get it. And they were like, "Yeah, send us your CV and all this stuff." And I was like, "Hey, I know you guys didn't ask for this, but here's my in-service exam." And at that time, they had a lot of people that failed their certification exam after they graduated residency. So they were really looking for people that were strong in taking tests. And I think that's the reason I got in. So I got into a program that was leaps and bounds better than anything that I had applied for in residency, because I had decided to kind of work on this test, the in-service exam. So did residency, and I actually wanted to apply for fellowship. I applied for POMCRIT, but again, I got interviews, and they were like, "Do you really want to do this? Like, you're doing all this stuff." I was working as a nocturnist at the time. I was running the 40-bed ICU, and I was like, "Yeah, I want some additional training." And I, again, didn't end up getting it. But once again, the best thing that could have happened in my life, because at that point I decided, I was like, okay, now I'm not going to have this big salary that I was expecting as an intensivist. So I need to take control of my life. And I remember that day, it was a conscious decision that I'm going to read about my finances. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything about real estate. I'm like, okay, I'm going to make this decision. And about a week later, someone on Facebook, one of the doctors' Facebook groups, was like, "Hey, does anyone live in Los Angeles?" I was like, "Hey," I posted, I live in Los Angeles. I will host an event. I'll pay for it. I'll market it. I'll clean up. I'll do everything." And Peter Kim, Passive Income MD, saw that, messaged me like right away and said, "Hey, want to jump on the phone?" This is back when he wasn't as famous. Want to jump on the phone? And our very first phone call was 3.5 hours. After like an hour, my wife is like, "Who are you talking to? Let me hear his voice. Is it really a boy? Like, why are you twirling your hair?" But yeah, we instantly connected, and we've just been working together ever since. And to get to the firm, we created a course on passive real estate, because I realized that there wasn't any education focused for helping doctors learn about passive real estate. And the stuff that was out there wasn't that great. It's kind of like those old like 80s documentation videos, like, here is review of systems and that kind of stuff. Now there's a lot more information, but we wanted something unbiased. But over time, people are like, okay, like, we want to invest in you guys. Like, we trust you. We want you to go out, find deals, negotiate. And we know that you guys will do things differently than a lot of the people we've seen. So eventually, enough people told us that they wanted to invest in us that we started a firm.
You mentioned different things that are really important for entrepreneurship. And one of them is the mindset, right? You were able to identify, nobody told you, but you were able to identify that within yourself, it wasn't you, it was the system. And then you made things. So you saw the opportunity, you said, I'm going to take it after you were of that thought. And you didn't let anybody decide what your future was going to be for you, which many people, unfortunately, because there's such an expectation of physicians, right? And we tend to be in this fixed mindset where, it has to be us, like we have to be perfect. We have to be this way. And we're like, it's like a herd, right? Being guided to go a certain way. And that's unfortunately what takes so much to so much frustration when we're allowing others to really take care of our lives instead of us taking care of our lives. And you did that. Not only that, that you had opportunities that came through to you and you said yes to. So you took action. And having this 3-hour conversation with a completely total stranger, Peter Kim, who now took you to these wonderful things that you're doing not only for yourself and your family, but you're really helping so many other physicians. And I don't know if you know this, but we do have our Maxillary Mastermind, which is a 6-month program for physicians. And it was really born at your Leverage and Growth Summit. It was the inspiration. It was where we learned about Mastermind and the value of that. And all those things that you've said, because you had the mindset, because you had your vision, because you decided who you wanted to be, and you're going to change and take action. All those things happened. And here we are talking about this. And us, for our side, for in my personal life, how you've affected my life, and you didn't know this, is like, because you decided to do all those things is the reason why, one of the reasons why we have a mastermind for physicians and we have this podcast that you're in today. So thank you for all those things. That's been wonderful gifts right there of your grandma,
You're
actually,
so
who decided to tell you to be a
You're
doctor.
so welcome. People can't see me blushing right now, but it's all about impact, right? And it's trying to make a difference. You just have no idea who you're going to touch, but that's why it's so important to put yourself out there, right? And after my many rejections, I feel my life is all about failing upward, right? And it's failure. I was like, okay, what can I do next to get better? But it's stopping, right? It's stopping. It's anytime something happens or something bad, like after the residency, I gave myself like 5 days to mope around. I was like, man, I'm the worst. Like I suck. And then after 5 days, I'm like, okay, like got that out of my system. And then over time, after the fellowship, I was like, okay, I give myself a day. Now something bad happens. I was like, okay, I got 5 minutes, 5 minutes to just feel bad about myself. And then I'm going to do better, because it is, it's cliche, but it's when one door closes, right? Another door opens, but you have to be in the state that you can see that other door open, right? Because if you're in the state where you're just like moping around, you're like, okay, so that Peter called me, I could have been like, man, like I'm too scared. I don't have anything of value to add him. What actually happened? So he's like, hey, I have this Facebook group, Passive Income Docs. He's like, it's kind of plateauing. I don't know what to do. Like I'm trying to grow it. I was like, I don't know what to do either, but I will help. Right. And I will Google stuff, like I'll be engaged. And I helped it grow from 3 to 10,000 doctors. And I didn't know what I was doing. I just figured it out. But if I would have said like, no, Peter, like I just like, I don't think I could do it. I don't know how, like I'm going to fail at it. And then he would have been like, okay, right. Would have found someone else, and probably someone else would be in the position that I am right now.
Yeah. You have to be in that position where you can say yes. Obviously, you're going to have to say no to certain things, but I think the point when you start to say no is really the things that don't go with your principles and your values. But if there's something that you see an opportunity for growth that's not going to interfere with those, that's when you should, take advantage. And you've done such a wonderful job. So congratulations on that. Not only that, that now you're at the point where you're teaching people about productivity, entrepreneurship, and time management. So I'd like to get to some of those topics for our listeners. Which one is your favorite one, if you could pick one of them?
I think as you mentioned, like trying to find, I always look for keystone habits, right? What is the one thing that I can do that will be the catalyst for everything else? So for example, whenever I put my son to sleep at around 7, I always go and put on my workout clothes, even if I don't plan on working out. Just, that's a habit, right? And then I know if I have my workout clothes on, I'm going to go work out, right? Chances are. Sometimes it's too cold or something, but the chance of that happening is just so much better. So what I really want people to focus on in the beginning is identity, right? so many people come up to me and they'll be like, I'm just a doctor. And then I'll look at their little email thing and it'll say like micro hand surgeon at Harvard. Right? How many micro hand surgeons are there in the world? They deal with like micrometers and blood vessels that are like you need a microscope to look at. Like
this is a microsurgeon at Harvard, a hypothetical or doesn't matter, who's talking to somebody who was rejected, right?
Yeah.
And they don't know this.
Exactly. Yeah. Rejected all the time, right? And it's just because we think we're in one lane all the time, and our identities as a doctor is super strong, right? Because we spent our whole lives and like fighting. And I know there's very few people that just it was smooth sailing. Like we all have these ups and downs. Even people that have been really successful and gotten everything they've wanted, they've had a lot of trials and tribulations as well. And because of that, our biggest identity is a physician, right? And a lot of times someone will be like, "Oh, Mister," and I was like, "Wait a second." No, I was like, "No, that's fine. I don't care. Call me whatever." But it's like, "Oh, like doctor," right? And so identity is super important. And so when you're trying to start something new, you need to don't take time to develop that identity. So you and I were talking offline about writing. Both of us hate writing. That's why we have podcasts, right? We'd rather just talk to someone. It's just so much easier. But if you're trying to have a writing habit, you should consider you are a writer, right? You've written enough. Write 10 words a day. That's a writer, right? You don't need to write a couple hundred words a day or a couple thousand. And the sooner that you identify with that person, then you could be like, oh, what would a writer do, right? It's kind of like what would Jesus do, that little like bracelet thing you've seen. And then as soon as you do that, that'll make the rest of everything else you want to do for that habit easier. And we always want to try to really go with the grain and not against it, because I find that a lot of people, like for example, weight loss, right? If you have like all these bad food in your house, like candy, especially if it's visible, you're going to pass by that chocolate bar like 10 times. The 11th time, you're going to finally take a bite. But if it was hidden away, then that would just make life so much easier.
Yeah, 11 times is too many times. Really, it happens on the second, the third. Come on, that's too many times. The other thing is like your habits. Like you can start your habits from that time, even before. Just for example, for the food. As physicians, just trying to change habits, building strategies and routines that will also take you not only from that moment when you go to to take that candy that was in your house, is trying to keep it from coming to your house, right? So when you go shopping, then go with your belly full, for example, and then that way you're not tempted to get. So if you see that you're failing at something because it's not happening despite your best habit right there at the moment before that activity, then let's see down the line, because as you said, it wasn't you, it was the system, right? So we can build these systems in our lives the same way, where if you want to exercise, if that's the thing that you want to ultimately happen, then maybe it might be, doesn't matter that you put the clothes on, maybe that's still not happening for you. Then let's look down past, that step on achieving that action that you want to achieve. Where can you change the system that is really going to make that change for you?
We've talked about failure a couple times. I have kind of a 3-part framework for dealing with failure, and especially it's kind of like depression, right? Like you feel like you don't have any friends, you just feel horrible, and when it kind of clouds how you look at things. So when something bad happens, or rejection, or really, you should reword that. You shouldn't call it failure. You shouldn't call it rejection. Just setbacks, right? Like something that's expected to happen. But when you do face a setback, it's temporary, right? And say I didn't match. I could have tried matching again. It's not something that's permanent, right? Then it doesn't say something about me. And this is one thing, fortunately, that I knew at the time. But I needed some external validation to to kind of help me get through that. And fortunately, I had that test. And 3, that it's just this one time. It's not going to be something that's going to repeating over time. So if you look at it, because those are the 3 things that people, when they have a setback, they kind of fall into that trap.
Let's imagine that you had stayed in that residency without transferring, right? Let's imagine that you didn't study for the test, and that you didn't have people telling you how great you were, because apparently there was something that wasn't getting there through to other people. What do you think would have happened? Have you ever thought about that? What if?
Yeah, well, my life would be way different because I met my wife the first day I moved to LA to start a new residency. So I do think about that, but it's every. I think I'd probably be in a pretty similar spot. It just would have taken a while to get there, and so. Just like fellowship, like I had the opportunity to get into places kind of like Fresno, like the middle of California. And I actually didn't rank those places because I knew what kind of life I wanted. And I like living in the city. And I think a lot of people underestimate the quality of knowledge and ideas that you get in city life. So a lot of people talk about geographic arbitrage, right? Living somewhere where it's cheap and taxes are less, but there's a concentration of people in certain places, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, and having that concentration of people and ideas, it just really helps expand everything. And so I don't know if Peter would have reached out to me if I said all that stuff and I didn't live in Los Angeles. So, and I've run into a ton of people here in LA. So having that network, everyone knows, you're the average of the 5 people you are associate yourself with, right? But the chances of those 5 people being really high quality and in terms of ideas and knowledge and motivations is much higher, and that's why we do these summits, these virtual summits and in-person summits, because it's really hard for physicians to talk to other physicians that are really into real estate or entrepreneurship. A lot of us kind of just have blinders on to the rest of the world, and we'll focus on just medicine. And that is okay, but I think that it's really powerful when you have a side hustle. And I think that not only helps give you more freedom and flexibility, but also makes you a better doctor. I am a lot better at telling people or convincing people not to drink alcohol or do drugs after I've done all these really hard negotiations in real estate and in business.
That's awesome, because one of the things that we see many physicians do is like they say, I want to leave medicine, right? They don't want to be physicians any longer. But in your case, you have these firms and groups and podcasts and all this stuff. But as you say, in your case, it's making you a better physician. And then you're coming to practice for joy at that point, which is what we want. We still want great physicians to be taking care of us. And that's what entrepreneurship seems to be doing for you right now.
Yeah, I think my job and my mission is not to get people out of medicine. I actually want the opposite. I want people to have long, durable lives, but on their terms, right? And I mean, think about if you need heart surgery. Do you want the surgeon that's been working for the past 6 days, or the one that works 2 or 3 days a week and goes to all these heart transplant conferences and just got off vacation and does all this research and has time for themselves and their family? So I think there's a spectrum, right? There's I'm full-time or more than full-time medicine, which a lot of us are, and then I've quit, right, and do zero medicine. And a lot of people think about these as binary choices, but there's a good spectrum in the middle. And for most people, it's not full-time, right? It's 2 or 3 days a week. And that is something that you can live with and do and don't get burnt out and provide better, high quality care to your patients.
Yeah, I want to touch on that, working just a few days a week. And that's something that you can choose as a physician. Many physicians don't see those as alternatives first, some of them will say, oh, if I don't operate so many days a week, I'm not going to get good at it. Or some will say, how can you do that? Because with the changes in medicine, the way they are, how can I make enough to be doing this living that I want to make? And those are part of the vision, right? We were talking about how to design your vision, which can happen at any point in your career, as long as you have the understanding that you can do it, first accepting that, and then taking the time to do that. I was looking at some of the things that you've written in the past, and just talking about the fact that you live in right now in LA versus just considering where your family came from, right? And the people that you surround yourself with, the cost of the place that you're living is not only the financial cost, but it's a social cost, right? Like you're surrounding yourself with these 5 people that are, I'm not saying the 5 people just to say 5 people, but you surround yourself with many more people than that are in this environment. So there's a cost to be exposing yourself to environments that are really less than optimal for us to be able to really practice for joy. Which things have you seen that, besides surrounding yourself, for people who are not in New York, who are not in LA, these doctors who are in these other areas, what sort of things do you think they could do to be able to get to a level where they don't have that social connection?
So if you are, say, you're in a smaller city or you're a rural doctor, it's a little bit more effort, and you got to go outside your comfort zone. So attend something like your mastermind, where you're surrounded by people that are really investing in themselves. We have a free virtual summit called Leverage and Growth Summit. It's all on Facebook. So you're just meeting people, and a lot of it is just motivation to see that someone else like you can do this. I have no doubt, if you're a physician, you already have the skills and expertise to do this. You just need a little bit of how, but the how can be figured out. More importantly is the why, right? Like, why are you doing this? Like, is it spending more time with family? Is it that you want to make a larger impact on the world, like we have? So it's trying to figure out what that why is. And then if that's strong enough, you'll figure out the rest. And sometimes it involves paying people. I've paid so many coaches and mentors and paid to be in the room with people much smarter than I am. I know a lot of times that kind of looks down upon, but I mean, look at Adele has a coach, right? How many millions and tens of millions of dollars? Venus Williams, the tennis star, has a coach. Like, all these people at the top of their game still have coaches. So I think trying to get into groups of people like that, people that are really interested in themselves, really focused on trying to improve, and a lot of times that's traveling. So we do a real estate conference. Actually, we're adding entrepreneurship. So it's a real estate entrepreneurship conference in September in Los Angeles. So just getting around those people, it's almost it's exhilarating, to hear about all these people that are super successful, and they kind of started all at the same place, right? We all did residency, we all graduated, and we had kind of a blank state, and we've been able to do a lot since then. And there's no doubt that you can as well.
So one of the things that limits physicians, and we see this in our mastermind, is the time management. People say, oh, I don't have time for that, or I have to do this, that. How do you approach this topic when you're coaching somebody?
So the first thing I have people do, a quick story. So I was trying to lose weight a couple years ago, and so I hired a nutritionist, dietitian, and the first thing that she had me do was do a food journal. I was like, no, I know everything I eat. I can tell you how many calories and macros. She's like, just humor me, just do it, okay, please. I was like, okay, it's gonna be a waste of my time, and 5 days later, I was like, yeah, you were right. I would probably eat 300 to 500 calories more, sometimes 1,000 calories more than I thought I ate, right? And that's why I wasn't losing weight. I was working out, I was exercising, I was running, but when you start figuring out what you did, and something interestingly happened. Day 1, just horrible. Day 2, horrible. But day 3 started to get better, right? And we all know this is the Hawthorne effect, right? When someone knows that they're being watched, they're going to start doing better. So she didn't have to do anything. Because I was recording stuff, I became better. So how does that work in time management? Well, I ask everyone to do a time audit or time journal. So take a week, right? Monday through Friday, ideally Monday through Sunday, but every 15 minutes, write down what you're doing. And so 15 minutes, I'm on this podcast. 15 minutes, I'm still going to be on this podcast. And what you'll and do that for the whole week. You're going to realize a couple different things for everyone. One, you change tasks often, right? So you're probably like writing emails, reading a blog post, writing emails again, right? So two, that you have a lot more free time than you think. Maybe you watch TV, listen to Spotify, and you have a lot of time, and maybe it's 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here. But if you block that time, it would add up to probably a couple hours a week, probably 5 to 10 extra hours that you didn't realize you had. And three, that other people are in charge of your schedule more than you are. You probably get added to all these random meetings and go to all this stuff, and other people are in charge of your time, and you're not super proactive. At least I'm not. I get a ton of stuff. I spend like a good 15 minutes a week on Mondays just deleting all these random meetings that someone adds me onto. And so when you look at that, then you'll really have an idea, like, where do I spend the most time? So for example, spend a lot of time on Reddit, which is like a news website. And I was like 2 to 3 hours a week. So that's almost like half a business day that I spend on this social media website. And that's where I can get time back, right? And then a lot of time wasted between tasks. So we all have the same 24 hours, right? There's some people that are super productive and other people aren't. So we need to really take a look, microscope to what our week looks like. And there's no doubt you can easily find 5 to 10 hours to do whatever you want.
I saw some of your blogs talking about how to block social media and how to manage this. So in these days where a lot of us are doing different things, being a physician and then posting on social media and coming back to take a look at the news, what would you recommend once you identify those pockets? How do you organize them?
So what works for me is to have a rule. For example, I have a rule that I don't eat at the hospital. So I work nights. No one ever brings carrots and celery overnight, right? It's always donuts, Chipotle, and pizza. So it's gotten, and a lot of it looks good, right? But it's just because I have this rule, I don't eat at the hospital. It just makes my life so much easier, right? I just tell people I don't eat at the hospital, and then I don't even have to think about it, right? I'm not worried about willpower. So I have this other rule that I'm not allowed to go look at any websites other than whatever I'm working on. So no Reddit, no news or anything before noon. And then that means I'm like super productive. And it's, sometimes I'm just staring at a blank screen thinking, or maybe I'll go play with my son or something, but no websites before 12. And slowly I've been, 1, 2, 3. And then I give myself like a little playtime overnight in the evening. But just having rules, like it's, you don't have to worry about willpower as much.
So let's talk about productivity, because you mentioned that you say you're so more productive. What does productivity mean to you?
So productivity, I think in the general sense, means getting more done. But I like to, and I'm still working on the title. I am making a new course on, right now it's called Effective Living. So it's getting more done of the stuff that matters. And so there's all these productivity tips, and there's a ton in the course and stuff that we mentioned before. But really focusing on what you want, and I find that us physicians, we don't necessarily know what we want anymore. We're like Olympians, right? Olympians, they gotten their gold medal or silver medal or bronze medal, and now they're like, okay, now I've gotten this, right? It's the the dog that caught the rabbit, and they don't know what to do right now. So it's really taking a step back and be like, what do I really want in life? And not just, I want to make an impact. I want to spend more time with family, but what does that actually mean? And once you figure out that, then you could that is a lens that you can use for everything else, right? So for example, like our real estate company, we knew that we didn't want to focus only on profit, because there's a ton of people that do that. We wanted to focus on how do we make this company a win for everyone? So a win for our investors, which there's a lot, a win for us, right? We don't want to work for free, but just as importantly, a win for our tenants. So the people that are living there. And quick story, someone brought us a deal where the current owner was saving a lot of money on taxes because they were providing a lot of affordable housing. But that those savings, they expire at the end of 15 years. And this was year 15, and they wanted to sell the property because taxes would go up a ton, right? So someone brought us the deal and they said, hey, we're going to go in, we're going to evict everyone, we're going to raise rent $600, we're going to make a ton of money, right? And it just didn't sit right with us. We didn't want to go in knowing that we're going to kick everyone out of their house. And I'm sure someone got that deal and made a ton of money, but that didn't feel right with us. And that's why a lot of people enjoy investing with us, because not only do we give them a good return, not the best, right? Not the highest, because we don't want to compromise our ethics, but how do you get a good return, but also be able to sleep well at night knowing that we're taking care of everyone involved?
Great principles and values, right? That's what you do as an entrepreneur. That's some of the things that you have to think of as the basis when you're building your business. Tell us about entrepreneurship, because you've been dabbling, and you come from a family where there's been entrepreneurship, with your father owning the limousines and an ice cream parlor. I have to tell you, my father owned an ice cream parlor when I was 7, and I used to work out of that, and he owned many businesses. And I think many of us have had some of the experience in, with the families being entrepreneurs. And so tell us about your transition into entrepreneurship. Which things have helped you besides the habits that you have and the connections that you've made to be able to be more successful as an entrepreneur, besides being a physician?
So I think as a physician, we've had to learn quickly, right? Back in medical school, one month you're doing cardiology, next you're doing OB-GYN, right? Completely different. And you're able to pick things up quickly. And that's entrepreneurship. Also, as a hospitalist, what do? You do problem solving, right? When you get a patient comes in undifferentiated, then you have to figure out what's going on, diagnose them, treat them. And then if that works, fine. If that doesn't work, you have to figure out what's going on. And in entrepreneurship, it's just solving problems, right? It's seeing, and I had a podcast episode, I think it's my second one with Dr. Peter Kim. And he is just amazing. He has 3 8-figure businesses, and he started all of them. And he sees a problem when most of us would walk and be like, hey, someone should do something about that. He'll see the problem and he'll be like, I should do something about that. And it's just that small tweak in mindset. And then he'll be like, okay, who can I get to help me do this problem? So that's why we started Ascent. And it's that problem solving that's just in all doctors. And we've learned that all the way. And you just apply that. What doctors do is we silo. We're like, everything I've learned in medicine is here, and entrepreneurship is there, where it's one silo, and all the skills that you learned along the way, persistence, diligence, being able to negotiate, right? Hard conversations, all this stuff translates very well to entrepreneurship. But what does get in the way is perfectionism. And us physicians have a lot of that, right? We were told, don't take that class if you don't know you can get an A, right? B's failure. And make sure you get the highest score possible. Don't raise your hand during rounds if you don't know the answer, otherwise you'll be embarrassed. So that perfectionism really gets us in the way. It's good in medicine, right? You don't want to try this new surgical procedure you had in a dream. But in entrepreneurship, like, hey, try it out, as long as it's the chance of it really causing major havoc is low, try it out. Maybe it'll be successful.
So we've talked a little bit about, time management and productivity and entrepreneurship. Is there any particular tip that you have for physicians who are listening to this and they is their first time listening to any of these concepts?
So I think one is try to find some help. You don't have to do this by yourself. Back when we created our company, there wasn't much out there, and we created our course. There wasn't a lot of physicians that had courses, but now there's a ton of physician blogs, physician podcasts, physician courses. People reach out to me all the time. They're like, "Hey, Pranay, I want to do this or I want to do that. Could you answer a couple questions?" I'm happy to do it. And I've reached out to a lot of people asking for help as well. So you might not feel like you have anyone to talk to at your specific hospital, but that's why we have all these Facebook groups. That's why you have your mastermind. You can easily make some connections to people quickly, and you'll be able to leapfrog to the next. Otherwise, you can kind of toil away and try to figure things out. And I have no doubt that you could figure things out, but why would you waste that time when you could just have someone help you?
Talking about helping you, you mentioned that you've paid to be in groups and to be coached and having these things. Tell us about some of those groups that have been most impactful outside of medicine, outside of what people would normally do as physicians.
So we have something called Leverage and Growth Accelerator, which was born off the Leverage and Growth Summit, and it's
I'm there.
Yeah, exactly. So that is it's a Facebook group, but it's a community of physicians that are all interested in entrepreneurship, products, blogs, podcasts, coaching. We have a lot of coaches, a lot of writers. And someone that has a FDA approved device. And it's just nice to have that online community where someone would be like, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about, hey guys and girls, I'm thinking about this. What do you think?" Or I have this issue at work and they're giving me issues, or someone offered to pay me for a talk. What do you think I should charge? So having that community. So fortunately, because I co-founded it, I don't have to pay for it, but I would. I would if I paid for it. And we've done some coaching on the real estate side. Some has been worth it, some hasn't. But the way I look at it is if I learn one or two things from something and it's a couple $1,000, it's totally worth it. I mean, how much did we pay for our education? How much did I pay for my master's degree? And you just don't take something away from everything, but it's also what you put into it. So I try to actually, these days I don't do as much coaching and masterminds and stuff, but the ones that I do, I really try to focus and extract as much value as I can.
So for our listeners, is there some particular topic or question I haven't asked you, but you say, you know what, I think our listeners should know this thing?
That's a good question.
What do you think we should tell them that you can offer? Because you've been now coaching others, you've been talking, now you have this equity group. How we didn't even mention that, like how do we get into an equity group, or how do we investigate, do the due diligence about which group would be a good group to join? Not only because Pranay is nice and he's telling us here and he sounds like an okay guy, like how do we find a good investment firm for us?
Yeah. So I think you have to find someone that aligns with your values. And that's why it's really important to figure out what your values are. And so I give you the story of how we kind of look at deals. And we found that no one has the same values. And that's of course always true. But find someone that aligns with you. But they also have to have a good track record. You don't want the best people that suck at what they do, right? So alignment of values, good track record. And then 3, get on the phone with them. And I find that that's the part that's missing, because you want to be able to talk to them, talk to whoever their representative is. And people are surprised when they call our number and I pick up, because I like talking to our investors. I like getting to know what they want. But make sure that when you talk to them, they're not just trying to sell you, right? They're trying to figure out what you want, if it's a good fit. Sometimes I tell people, hey, like, I don't think this investment is going to be a good fit for you. Maybe they need their money next year, and our deals are usually 3 to 5 years long, or maybe they're just trying to scrape by. And I was like, no, you probably should create an emergency fund and don't put every single penny you have into this investment. And so trying to find people that align with you, talking to people, finding the like, do they sell you, right? Because that should be, it's almost like dating, right? Because you're going to be with this person for 3 to 5, hopefully longer, right? For multiple deals. And you only need to find a handful of people that align with you. And of course, their track record, making sure that they do what they say. And ideally talking to some other investors. For us, it's easy. Like, our investors are everywhere, all over to Facebook and the US. So it's easy to talk to someone that's invested with us. So those are the things that I would look for. And it takes a little time. But if you're giving someone, $25, $50, $100,000, you should put in just a little bit of time up front, because after that, after you find someone that hits all those boxes, you just invest in every one of those deals, and the amount of effort that's going to take is very minimal.
As the owner of the firm, what are your qualities that you're looking for in somebody, like your ideal investor?
So we want someone that is looking to try to find their ideal life, right? We want someone that isn't necessarily trying to double their money in a year, right? And because what we focus on is long term, right? Naval, who has one of the most popular podcasts in the world, he says, associate yourself with long-term people that think long-term, right? And so we want to be around for 30, 40, 50 years, hopefully past our lives. And so we want to associate people that are looking for that. There's some people that are so burnt out that are like, okay, I need to double my money in 2 years, or I need to quit medicine. And our deals they're not like that. We'll get 10 to 15% return every year. So it's pretty good, better than the stock market. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to double your money in a year. So we want people that know that, and we like people that are knowledgeable. And a lot of people come to us and they're like, Pranay, I don't know anything, which is totally fine. But that's why we educate people. We have a course, we have a ton of blog posts. I'm on like 50 plus podcasts, but we send people education so that not only do you get a good investment, but I want you to sleep well, knowing that you understood what you're getting into and that you trust the people you're investing in. So a lot of that we try to help people. And I jump on the phone all the time. They're like, Pranay, what does this mean? And what does that mean? I'm happy to explain that, because, and they always apologize, but I'm like, no, I promise I don't know anything about like MRI spines, right? I'm like, is there a big blob thing that's not supposed to be there or not? I don't really know anything else, right? And so I don't blame them as physicians to not know anything about real estate, because that's my job to explain things to them. And then lastly, I always tell people that, like, if someone's not willing to take the time to explain it to you, like you're 5 years old, then that's kind of at least a yellow flag, if not a red flag.
I have one question for you. What does your wife tell you now about this new love in your life, Peter Kim?
No, she's happy. We've really grown close over the years. We've gone to dinner, and unfortunately he moved to Orange County, so he's might as well be a state over. But yeah, it's just Peter and then Myth, our third partner, who's also a physician in the set. I've just been super close, and it's these friendships that you create. If we start, like, if for some reason we sold Ascent, which we don't want to do, but say someone offered us $10 billion, then the first thing we'd probably do is celebrate. And the second thing we'd do is start another business together.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for being here today. If people want to work with you in any of these things, like people want to listen to your blog, Leverage and Growth Accelerator, or Ascent, tell us where they can find you.
Yeah, so for Ascent, it's Ascent equitygroup.com/start. And that's how you get on our newsletter. That's how you get all the education that we give out. I do once to twice a month free Zoom calls, just kind of explaining like what's going on in real estate. My podcast is called From MD to Entrepreneur. And you can find that on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And the website is FromMD.com.
Great. And then if you guys want to learn more about Leverage and Growth Summit, it comes out every March, right? It's been for the last
So every
years.
March. PassiveIncomeMD.com is Peter's brand, and you can find out all the information about Leverage and Growth Summit, Accelerator, and the course as well.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much. Thank you for everything that you've done. As you know, as I told you, you're part of our family without knowing it. And, it's like your grandbabies are our students. So thank you for doing that. I'll see you then.
Yeah, thank you. And, it's a rare person that learns something and apply it right away. So kudos to you.
Thanks. Hey, guys. And that was it. Thank you for listening to our podcast today, brought to you by our Maxillary Mastermind, a physician personal and professional development program. I hope that you can join us again. If you want to learn more about Dr. Pranay Parikh, you can visit his website, which is ascentequitygroup.com, or you can listen to his podcast From MD to Entrepreneurs. I hope that you had a great time, and please share this with your friends and family. Don't forget that we have a new mastermind cohort coming up in just a couple of months. Visit our website, maxallure.com, maxallure.com. I'll see you then. Thanks. Bye.
Please remember that Design is not providing specific financial, medical, or career advice. Our only intent is to stimulate your appetite for growth by sharing our experience and those of our speakers, coaches, and guests. Your personal growth and success will be unique to your circumstances and your hard work. We sincerely hope you enjoyed the show and look forward to seeing you next week.